Welcome to TarantulasDreamTV. You are watching a previously recorded broadcast. Tune in every Monday and Wednesday from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Instagram at TarantulasDreamTV for new episodes. And remember, it is a weird, weird world.
It is intended for the entertainment and instruction of broad-minded adults only, and should not be played to or sold to minors under any circumstances whatsoever. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the floating pie pan in the sky at Groom Lake Analog Recordings. Welcome to TarantulasDreamTV. Now here's your host, Samba.
Hello everybody and welcome to another broadcast of TarantulasDreamTV. I am your host, Samba. I hope everyone's doing well out there tonight. It's been a crazy week for sure, all across the country, all across the world. It's been crazy. Phone number for the show is 520-704-7820 if you'd like to call in at 9:30, open line. So I'm opening up the phone lines for everyone who wants to chat with Samba and a special guest tonight. I have a special guest. So please stick around for that. I know I am excited to talk to our special friend over here. I'm not gonna give them away. I'm not gonna let you know who they are until until it gets a little bit closer to when they're going to be on the air, which should be in about 5-6 minutes. Anyway, so I'm going to get into some headlines. Now, I know that the stream is probably looking a little funky tonight. I've done all I can. I just did a test stream over on YouTube probably about an hour ago, and it was streamed fine. So honestly, again, if this is like an Instagram thing, I'm bummed. I don't know what to say. I really don't know. It seems to have just started to have problems in this last week or so. So yes, hopefully if my video's kind of glitchy, hopefully the audio is coming through, because it's going to be mostly talking tonight anyway. But anyone in the comments, if you want to let me know if it's looking bad or not, just let me know. I don't really know what else to do at this point other than just keep on keeping on. And if people tune off, they tune off. But hopefully you stick around anyway. So headlines for tonight, we got some big ones. So the first one's coming from ABC13.com. Hurricane Laura makes the turn north now with 150 miles per hour winds. Laura's landfall predicted early Thursday morning as a Category 4 hurricane. Hurricane Laura is an extremely dangerous storm approaching the Texas-Louisiana coast, but Houston will avoid severe impacts. The National Hurricane Center confirmed in their 7 p.m. advisory that Laura has made the expected turn north. Catastrophic storm surge, extreme winds, and a flash flooding are expected along the northwest Gulf Coast tonight. And only a few hours remain to protect life and property. So anyone out in Texas and Louisiana, please, I'm hoping... if I have any friends out there right now who are listening to me, I hope if you're in those areas, you've gotten out, you've been able to kind of find shelter, find higher ground, whatever you need to do to get out of that area, because this is not looking good. Next headlines from APnews.com. 17-year-old arrested after 2 killed during unrest in Kenosha. A white 17-year-old police admirer was arrested Wednesday after 2 people were shot to death during a third straight night of protests in Kenosha over the police shooting of a black man, Jacob Blake. Kyle Rittenhouse of Antioch, Illinois, about 15 miles from Kenosha, was taken into custody in Illinois on suspicion of first-degree intentional homicide in the attack Tuesday that was largely captured on cell phone video. The shooting left a third person wounded. "I just killed somebody," the gunman, carrying a semi-automatic rifle, could be heard saying at one point during the rampage that erupted just before midnight in the city of 100,000 people midway through Milwaukee and Chicago. In the wake of the killings, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers authorized the deployment of 500 members of the National Guard to Kenosha, doubling the number of troops. The governor's office said he is working with other states to bring in additional National Guard members and law officers. Authorities also announced a 7 p.m. curfew an hour earlier than the night before. Even so, protesters were out Wednesday night after the curfew. So, yeah, it's going down over there in Kenosha, so I hope everyone is staying safe out there as well. So over on my Instagram page, I have posted the link to a GoFundMe set up by Jacob's mother to help cover medical expenses, mental and grief counseling, and a whole bunch of future expenses. So please check that out and donate if you can. And the last bit of news, some sad news to report if everything else wasn't particularly happy anyway, but more sad news. Riley Gale of Power Trip has died. Now, a statement posted by the Gale family stated, "It is with the greatness or the greatest of sadness we must announce that our lead singer and brother Riley Gale passed away last night. Riley was a friend, a brother, a son. Riley was both a larger-than-life rock star and a humble and giving friend. He touched so many lives through his lyrics and through his huge heart. He treated everyone he met as a friend, and he always took care of his friends. We will celebrate Riley's life and never forget the great works of music, charity, and love that he left behind. You, the fans, meant so much to him. Please know how special you are. And if you have a memory of Riley, please share, no matter how small, as we remember him. Please respect our wishes for privacy during this time. In lieu of flowers, please send donations to Dallas Hope Charities." So if you were here for the intro, kind of the countdown, I did play some live Power Trip, so you can find them at powertrip.bandcamp.com if you'd like to listen to some of Riley Gale's music. So rest in power. So one last bit of news before we get to the meat of the night. Above me, I do have a new charity kind of scrolling above my head. Now this one's for the Defend Odom Land Bail Fund. Now their GoFundMe states, "The U.S.-Mexico international border cuts through ancestral Odom homelands. Trump's border wall is now desecrating those homelands by blasting grave sites, depleting scarce water resources for construction, posing threats to endangered species, and committing colonial violence on indigenous lives. Odom land is being encroached upon by the Trump border wall. The wall itself symbolizes white supremacy, xenophobia, and disrespects ancestral Tohono O'odham and Sia O'odham land, natural resources, sovereignty, and self-determination to protect their ancestral homelands. Funds are needed to support O'odham and allies as they protect their homelands from the devastation Trump's border wall poses to O'odham sacred sites and O'odham lives. The costs include immediate bail relief, long-term legal support, vehicle impoundments, and continuation of sustained organization efforts to protect O'odham land." So if you have any extra funds that you want to give to some deserving causes, please check out the Instagram page and click on the link for the for the Jacob Blake GoFundMe, as well as check out the link above me for the Defend Odom Land Bail Fund as well. So before I get to the meat of the night and our special guest, so check out some of these comments. Dale Maleficus, hello there. Miles, a swell guy. Hello, Miles. Thanks for tuning in again. I'm sorry that your first Tarantula's Dream episode was the one on Monday that got screwy by the internet. And it looks like my internet might have cleared up, so I don't know. Maybe it just takes a second now to get going, like an old car, like an old man, just sinking into to a nice warm bath. It just takes a second before they get comfortable. Las Moletas, a little alien emoji. Hello, old Adam man. Good to have you back. Conspiracy. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my internet over here. It looks like it's cleared up, and so hopefully it remains that way for the rest of the program. But unfortunately, I've done all I can. I've done some adjustments. In fact, my stream might look a little funky quality-wise because I've had to actually dial back some of the what they call it, the bit rate that I was sending out. It might have been too high, but I'm streaming at half the bit right now, and I was still having problems at the beginning. So maybe it just takes a second to kick in. I don't really know how to fix that. So, Lizzie Mouse, you got some fist right there, some fists of solidarity, and Las Muletas some thumbs up and some hand waves or something like that. I don't know. The emojis look weird on my computer, so they might not be translating very well. But anyway, so tonight we're going to be talking about UFOs. We didn't really get to the UFO talk on Monday, so this will be kind of a condensed show in a way. I mean, I'm going to talk to you all about some modern UFO news, but I also have a special guest tonight. So before I get to them, I do have a little intro I wrote up over here. So ever since my emergence from my mother's womb in 1986 and slowly growing into the fuzzy little Samba you see today, I have harbored a small obsession over the idea of extraterrestrial beings. I remember obsessing over the made-for-TV alien documentaries all over basic cable back in the early 90s, from Fox's Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction, to Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County, which I actually had a copy of that on VHS that I taped, and then I would just watch repeatedly until my parents kind of took the tape away from me because they thought it was ruining my brain. So now, over the years, I've read numerous books and watched countless documentaries and heard many of the theories floating around the community, from interdimensional beings visiting humans to imparting technology and esoteric knowledge for the betterment of our species, to our alien overlords shape-shifting into politicians and heads of state, controlling our every move through psychic control and hidden symbols. So tonight, I'm going to be talking to a special guest over here. Now, this guest, I'm going to introduce them as sort of a UFO aficionado, or a UFO. They definitely believe in UFOs. They've had some experiences themselves, and I'm going to bring them on the phone right now. Genesis, are you there?
Yes, Samba, I'm right here.
Cool. How are you? I'm doing good. How are you doing tonight, Genesis?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. So before we get into kind of the meat of this interview, I just have a little my first question for you is, what's your deal with UFOs? Why do you believe in UFOs? What's your connection with the subject of UFOs and extraterrestrials?
Like you, I've had an obsession, mild obsession when I was younger. I remember when I was a kid watching X-Files with my mother. I can't remember what channel it came on, but back when it was still live on TV or, fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And read a lot of books. And I remember, just to preface, I grew up on a Air Force base. So, you see lights in the sky, but they're pretty easily explained. But, it always kept me curious. Okay,
so all right, so that's an interesting turn. You grew up on an Air Force base. Now, I'm assuming is your father in the military, or your mother, or both, or why were you on the Air Force base?
Yes, I was dependent, father and mother, and then later just father.
Okay. So you've been around sort of, I guess the military industrial complex in a way on military bases. Now, growing up on military bases, did you ever see anything while you were there? Have any experiences with something unexplainable while you were growing up on Air Force bases?
I would say the first time I would be about maybe like 10, 11 years old. It seemed, because living on a base, you know how an airplane moves. Mm-hmm. Like they have a certain way they move about in the sky. Same with helicopters. And I do recall seeing strange lights moving in a awkward fashion, but it was nothing more than like the light you see of a star. So could have been anything. Could have been a trick of the eye. I always tried to write. I'm always a skeptic, even to this day.
All right. Well, that's interesting. So you consider yourself a skeptic, yet you do have a belief in at least the idea of UFOs. Now, are you in the camp that we are currently being visited by UFOs? Like me personally, my belief is UFOs have made the journey here. That they in some way have made contact with humans. Now, I'm not sure if I necessarily believe in the idea of a global cabal of world governments kind of conspiring to keep it a secret necessarily, but I do believe that just with the numerous sightings we've had over the years and the numerous kind of firsthand accounts of seeing mysterious lights in the sky, if not actual craft, that they have made it into our planet. They're here now. Are you in that camp of they have made contact with us and there is some sort of conspiracy to keep them secret, or is it really just kind of like they're the distant observers at this point?
I think it may have started out as distant observers. If you follow, I guess, UFOlogy or the mythology behind UFOs, there's been mysterious things in the sky for quite some time. But it seemed that after the atomic testing and then the dropping of the atomic bomb, it seems like around that time frame something changed. Like they may have perhaps gotten a little more overt, a little more aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I've definitely heard, especially over the years, with numerous sightings around military bases, especially around bases that do have nuclear capabilities, nuclear, warheads or something underground. And in fact, for people listening right now, if you're not familiar, there have been a lot of numerous sightings of UFOs around bases that have nuclear material. And in fact, there's been stories of UFOs shutting down kind of our safeguards with our nuclear armaments, essentially, almost to the point of where it looked like they were going to launch. But then once the UFO kind of made its presence known and sort of kind of flexed a little bit, the systems came back online, so we were able to avert launching these nukes that we really had no control over at this point. So with that, there are people like Dr. Stephen Greer, who is a ufologist and kind of, I guess you could say he's a UFO whistleblower. He put together the Disclosure Project, which has been working for a long time to kind of work on getting the word of the alien presence, the UFO presence, out to the public. He tends to come, at least at this point, he tends to come from a more potentially UFOs are benevolent, as in they are here to share knowledge to help us evolve on a more spiritual level, and they're also giving us technology that would benefit mankind or benefit humankind in regards to not having to rely on fossil fuels so much and essentially free energy, perpetual energy. He comes from it from that kind of perspective, as opposed to UFOs, extraterrestrials are malevolent. So Genesis, what's your take on the idea of sort of UFOs? Do you feel like are they benevolent? Are they malevolent? Are they like humans, where there's kind of two sides to the coin here? I mean, there's stories of different alien races that some are good, some are bad. Do you feel like there's some truth in that?
Yes, I am in the Stephen Greer camp, but I do believe that that coin has two sides. And in particular, it appears from what, from what I've read, from what I've heard, from what I've, seen, that in particular the gray alien race seems to be a little bit of, maybe a little maleficent, a little negative.
Yeah, I think in general, when I've heard stories of sort of the classic UFO abduction story, they tend to include the Greys in some way, either sort of like foot soldiers for the Greys, which tend to be these like smaller pint-sized Greys, versus more of the taller, skinnier Greys. But ultimately, they tend to be the ones that are behind these alien abductions. So the idea of if you're going to believe that there's different species of UFOs and extraterrestrials. The grays tend to be the bad ones, if you will. So there you go. So Genesis, sounds like you believe that there's some good aliens, there's some bad aliens. With each of them have their own agenda. I was talking to a friend today about this very same thing before the show, and I'm a little more in the camp of, or at least I find it interesting, the idea that potentially UFOs or extraterrestrials, if they're here on Earth and they've made the trip out here, whether through flying through the sky or flying through space faster than the speed of light, or bending time, or going through wormholes, or whatever they're doing to get here, if they're that technologically advanced, potentially they may not even have these sort of like human type emotions when it comes to things, but maybe they don't really engage in what they consider good and bad behavior. It's just behavior to them. I'm not sure. Do you have any feelings in regards to that idea that maybe extraterrestrials just, to us, the grays are bad. They're abducting people. They're potentially experimenting on people. But to them, they're just doing what they're doing. They don't really have a concept of good or bad.
I'm inclined to agree with you on that. And what we could think of their quote-unquote negative behavior might just be misunderstood. I mean, I figure if you can do the things that we've seen them do and the things that I witnessed personally, I think any sort of war, it wouldn't even be that. I believe that if you have the power to do the things that I've seen, you would beat us pretty quickly. And then you also mentioned the turning our atomic weapons off and on.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that. That's our trump card. That's the ace in the hole, and that's nothing apparently to them. So yeah, so I figure if they wanted to take us, we would be taken.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. Again, we come back to the nuclear kind of idea that, or the atomic kind of idea. Are you familiar with the Starfish Prime kind of atomic experiment that happened?
Oh, yes, I do. And the consequences of that is when you detonate an atomic bomb outside of the Van Allen belt, you potentially risk not only destroying your own satellites, but possibly wiping out life on the planet. You collapse that large amount of basically captured solar wind and bring it down upon the planet.
Yeah. Well, one kind of in an earlier episode of the show, I was talking about Tom DeLonge and the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, company that he founded and has kind of been doing a lot of the more modern UFO investigations or extraterrestrial investigations, especially with technology that potentially we've captured, and UFO craft that we've captured and back engineered. They're doing supposedly they're doing a lot of work in that kind of field. But Tom DeLonge is a big believer that during the Starfish Prime kind of experiment, that the blast caused an EMP, and that was one of the first times we were able to actually bring down a craft, an extraterrestrial craft. So that was when we found out that even though they are able to control our launch capabilities, or at least our safeguard systems, that in the detonation of an atomic blast, that subsequently that EMP is available to us to take down a craft. Now, I'm not sure how prudent that would be if we were using nuclear or atomic weapons to take down UFOs. It seems like it would be kind of mutual assured destruction on both of our parts. So I'm not sure how well that's going to actually play out in the end if we ever have to use it. But according to him, EMPs and through atomic blasts are actually a weapon available to us to take down UFOs.
Yeah, that could be the... I don't know if you remember the supposed Star Wars program. That could be the logic behind getting atomic weapons positioned out in space, because if they can take out our launch capabilities pretty effectively. Well, if it's already out there, hidden in some satellite or what have you, as a last-ditch effort, that could be the whole point behind that supposed Star Wars program.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we may be finding out sooner or later here in regards to kind of the idea of disclosure and what the Two to Stars Academy has been kind of upfront saying that according to them, the government has been preparing in some way for something in regards to either when the disclosure of UFOs happen and potentially the ramifications of one, society finally learning the truth for so long, and potentially what we're going to do to protect ourselves against the extraterrestrial threat, according to them. But at any rate, we're about 4 minutes to the break. So what I want to do is get to some of these comments and see if there's any hot takes or questions for myself or our guest on the phone, Genesis. Let's look at the comments over here. Blob Dorda, look at you now. Taking the tape didn't help. I'm not sure what taking the tape. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Blob Dorda over here. Look at that. You're giving me the crying emoji. I'm not sure what you're talking about. A friend for the planet, heart eyes emoji. There you go. Thanks for tuning in, friend of the planet. Looks like you're a first time listener to the show, so I thank you for streaming. Benjamin, who are the canonically benevolent races? So as far as I know, the tall whites are and honestly, this is one of the problems I have with the UFO story with different races, where the benevolent race is the tall whites, who essentially just look like European, blonde hair, blue-eyed humans almost. They have kind of different features here and there, but essentially they're the most human looking as far as I could tell, and they're also the ones that are just white. So I don't know if I actually feel good with that idea that the only really good aliens, at least in regards to the more modern stories and stuff, are the tall whites. But every other race, the reptilians and like I said, the alien greys, and there's a few other ones that the Syrians, they're all essentially potentially malevolent. So yeah, I don't know. Tall whites, I'll give you that. There you go. Old Adam Man, you're giving me a little crying over here. I hope you're crying, laughing. I hope you're doing all right. Trial and Error Collective, hello. Nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a little while over here on the stream. I'm glad to see you tuning back in. And Benjamin, yikes. Yeah, again, tall whites. They're the good guys. So, you know, I guess it is what it is when it comes to alien species. Anyway, so it is 9:28. I'm going to take a little break here. So, Genesis, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on hold for just a few minutes, and then we'll start talking about some more of the modern UFO stuff going on if you're down to keep chatting for about another half hour or so.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right, so I will see you in a little bit. And so tonight we got some jams tonight for y'all. So I was gonna play kind of a double header here through the week, but I'm gonna save the second song for next week. So I had a new friend move into the house I'm living at. So I want to welcome Eric to the house. So this song tonight is by his band Rik the Pigs. The song's called Vile Order from their 2016 Life's a Bus 7-inch. So times 9:28. When I get back, I'm opening up the phone lines for everyone else. If you have any questions for myself or our guest Genesis, phone number for the show is 520-704-7820, and I will see you all in a few minutes. So a jam on some Rik the Pigs.
My
And there we are. That was Rik and the Pigs with Vile Order from their 2016 7-inch Life's a Bust. Now, if you want to head over to their Bandcamp and give them some bones, throw some piggly bones towards Rik and the Pigs. The address is Rik, R-I-K, and is pigs.bandcamp.com. So, make sure to head over there and give him a listen. He's got a kind of a big old set of releases, and they range from what you just heard right now to some more rock and roll kind of stuff. So definitely give Rik and the Pigs a listen. It is 9:31 over here at Tarantulas Dream TV, and it is open line. So if you have any questions for myself or the guest Genesis, which I'm going to bring back on the line right here. Genesis, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, so I got Genesis back. Let me throw your photo back up there so everyone can take a look. So we're back on the air. So last we left off, we were talking about some UFOs and their kind of ability to kind of mess with our nuclear and our atomic capabilities. But now I want to get into some more modern UFO news. Now, have you been keeping up with kind of the more modern stuff, especially the New York Times articles and all those kind of revelations? Have you been keeping up with that?
Yes, I have. In particular, like the referring to like the FBI task force.
Yeah, so definitely. Yeah, definitely the FBI task force. That tends to be. I think that's the most recent kind of revelation now for those on the air who don't know. In a statement issued by the Pentagon on October 4th, 2020, Deputy Secretary of Defense David L. Norquist approved the establishment of an unidentified aerial phenomena task force. The Department of Defense established the UAPTF to improve its understanding of and gain insight into the nature and origins of UAPs. The mission of the task force is to detect, analyze, and catalog UAPs that could potentially pose a threat to U.S. national security. So pretty much finally the Pentagon, after acknowledging the three kind of released or leaked UFO footage that I covered back on the TTSA episode, they finally came out and acknowledged it themselves, and then they also came out and acknowledged that they're forming a task force to kind of investigate UFOs and or UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. Now, Genesis, what do you think of this kind of these revelations that are coming out? I mean, the New York Times has been posting articles pretty much as over 10, I believe, at this point over the years in regards to different government programs that are kind of coming to light, different again, revelations that I've kind of been waiting for a long time. I've been really waiting for I wasn't sure what I wanted. I wasn't sure if I wanted our president of the United States at some point during my life to just do a press conference and kind of spill the beans on the UFO agenda, or what are extraterrestrials, what are they doing here, the whole load of news. But now it looks like there's just kind of slowly trickling out all these kind of little bits of information through mainly the New York Times. But I mean, the info when I was researching the show came from New York Times, CNN, The Guardian, AP News. Like a lot of news outlets picked this up, so it's spreading. What do you think of this kind of like slow trickle of information?
I think it's the soft sell to disclosure. I think if they had just come out and said it 20 years ago, however many years ago, that, oh, by the way, there's aliens and we're not the biggest kid on the block anymore, I think you would get your panic, chaos, and all that good stuff. So I think this is probably the best way for them to go about it is just trickle out there like, ooh, look what we have, look what we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think the idea of soft disclosure is something that kind of seems to be what's going on here. For those unfamiliar, the idea is that over time, by kind of releasing little bits of information, as well as kind of normalizing the idea of extraterrestrials as a presence just in your mind, essentially through Hollywood movies and TV shows and stories, and kind of making them sort of pop culture, you're kind of indoctrinating the public into the idea that these creatures or these entities are a reality. So when official channels, the government and news media and people within administrations kind of start coming forward and letting you know that, yeah, honestly, there are extraterrestrials. We've known about them for a long time, or they've been, flying through the skies and we don't know exactly what they are. That when those days start happening, it's less of a shock. And I will say that it seems like it's working. I mean, it could be just sort of a symptom of the fact that this year has been so crazy in so many different ways, that the idea that UFOs, extraterrestrials, their presence potentially here on the planet can be kind of, the New York Times can let us know that that's what's going on, or that there's something going on, and yet it kind of the news media only really latches on for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then it kind of just disappears. And it seems like that would be the biggest news, like, on the planet, to like everybody, that official channels are admitting that something's going on, and that we whether they're giving us the full story, whether they actually don't know what's flying through our skies, I kind of don't believe. But again, I guess if it's soft disclosure, they can't just go, yeah, these things are UFOs just flying over us. They kind of have to call them UAPs, call them unidentified aerial phenomenon. Potentially that could leave room for them to be drones or something like that. But yeah, I'm definitely in the camp of this is potentially soft disclosure. Now, kind of to backtrack a little bit, before the break, you had said that you'd had some experiences, and I was wondering if you were comfortable kind of sharing some of those experiences with the listening audience in regards to what you've seen and what you've experienced with UFOs and extraterrestrials.
Oh, definitely. I would say the incident that made me a believer went from, I'm always skeptical, but the incident that I saw, it was too close, too undeniable. It would be about 15 years ago. I think it was in summer 2005. I was working at a theater, and I had a coworker that was outside doing closing duties, and he was gone a little too long. I went out to check on him, and he's staring up at the sky. He asked me, you've lived on an Air Force base, when you're a kid, what kind of jet is that? So I'm looking at it, and he points out like a blue light, and it kind of looked like a jet's afterburner, except it wasn't making any noise. When basically like a fighter plane is using its afterburner, it's going pretty fast, which means it's making some racket, especially if it's close enough to see the blue from its engine. Mm-hmm. But no noise, and then it was moving in a way that it would kill the pilot if a jet moved like that.
Right.
And so we tracked it in the sky, walked around the entire building just following it, and it started changing colors. And at this point, it's just the light in the sky, but it's getting bright. It looks like it's closer, and it's like starting to do things where it's like here in one partition of the sky, then it pops up in another. And at this point, we lose it. After we had completely encircled the building, came back pretty much to where we began. And so this whole incident goes on for maybe 15 minutes. So at one point, we lost it, and then this feeling, like an uncomfortable feeling, came over the both of us. And there it is, coming over one of the buildings, literally across the street, is a quote-unquote flying triangle, like the one you hear about. And this thing had to be 2 stories tall, and it was basically floating over this little strip mall across the street, and it was about the width of that strip mall. So you're talking like 2-3 stories tall. It had at every point in the triangle at the bottom, it had kind of reddish orange lights, and in the middle, a large blue light. You couldn't hear any sound except for this low hum. I mean, really, really low, but you kind of feel it like a bass, like a speaker in like a club, but just playing this really low, like, hum. And it was, to me, it was just so close, like across the street. I could have thrown a rock and potentially hit it. Not that I would have dared seeing that, but one of the strange things was, so it's just hovering there, doing the slow banking, and it just, you can't, when you see something like that, it's just mind-blowing. And the strange phenomena that I noticed was that all the dirt that was on the street, being that, you know, this is in a desert, so everything's got dust and dirt all over it, it was beginning to rise. Like, it was starting to create this little, almost like fog of dirt, that it was like lifting the dirt off the ground.
Oh, wow.
So I wonder, was this, you know, a consequence of its obvious anti-gravity mechanism that it's using to float in the air? It kind of hovers there for a good minute or so, and then begins to move south towards the Air Force Base that is in the same city. We lose sight of it, and shortly after that, we see three, what I would presume to be jet fighters. I think they had F-16s on that base at that time. Take off. They go high altitude, and clearly they were trying to triangulate based on the positioning of the fighter jets in the sky with their radars, whatever they're trying to see, I guess, whatever it was that we just saw.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, there's I think they're called AC-130s, pretty large prop plane that are used for communications and basically electronic countermeasures.
Right.
At least that was their duty on that Air Force installation at the time. Basically retracing the steps of the flying triangle we just saw. So attempting to track it, jam it, whatever the story was, but I seem to have had some sort of pre-planned response.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be the story that, and I'm you know, this went on for all in all, you know, from lights to actually seeing the massive flying triangle, about 10-15 minutes. And at that last portion, when we saw it up close, that was a pretty frightening experience. And I guess the last caveat I would add is that shortly after it left, the gentleman that was with me, there was also another witness that came out looking for us because we were not in the building during closing time.
Mm-hmm.
And she saw the triangle as well. The gentleman that was with me ended up getting sick within like 5 minutes after it had went away. He was in the bathroom throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he was excited from what he saw, and it was from that, or if it was a reaction to whatever weird wave pattern it was giving off.
Right.
But then a customer that was watching the movie upstairs runs down the stairs, goes directly into the bathroom. He's throwing up. Later, when I'm locking the gates, I see a customer open the door from their car and throw up in the parking lot. So there's at least 3, maybe 4 people that had thrown up, 2 or 3 of which did not see the object in the sky. So it was just purely a reaction to whatever gravitational waves or anti-gravitational mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that made me a full-on believer. Now, I never saw any pilots. Could it be one of our own creations? Perhaps. A lot of people say that, you know, the U.S. government had a triangular-shaped, basically their own UFO. But from what I saw, something of that size, that I believe that's beyond the capabilities of mankind, unless there's some secret science that's going on that someone completed the unifying field theory and have not told the rest of the world that they now know how to bend the laws of gravity and physics.
Right. And
it's always possible. I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, that's kind of been the through line through a lot of UFO stories over the years where, and I keep bringing up TTSA, To the Stars Academy of Sciences. Now, are you familiar with Tom DeLonge and kind of his work with TTSA?
Yeah, I'm a little familiar with them. I've followed them, actually more recently. They kind of went under my radar for a while, but in recent times, they seem to be like the champions next to like a Stephen Greer and his whistleblowing as well.
Sure. Yeah, they're definitely like the most, for better or for worse. I know there's a lot of UFO researchers, ufologists who've been in the game for a long time, and having someone like Tom DeLonge kind of come into the UFO field community and kind of just take over in a lot of ways in regards to his research, his beliefs, and his company's research. I think a lot of ufologists are kind of got turned off by it. I think it was mostly a pride thing, so I won't really get too deep into that because it's not really important. But with TTSA, I think a lot of what they're kind of saying is that these craft, these whatever they are, either from they're off-world, which is interesting to say now because there was that New York Times article that came out that used the term off-world vehicles, essentially kind of, without saying it, but saying that we have craft from outer space, essentially. Now, that was a quote from Eric W. Davis, who is an astrophysicist who worked as a subcontractor and then a consultant for the Pentagon UFO program since 2007. Now, he's the one who said that we had off-world vehicles, that we couldn't make it ourselves. That's what he's claiming. So the idea that potentially these craft, potentially even the one you saw 10, 15 years ago, potentially that's one that it could have been ours. It could have been back engineered from a crashed UFO. It sounds strange, and again, it kind of goes against a lot of scientific theories that we have right now, scientific facts. But the potential for it to be a human-made craft, but from back engineered UFOs, I think it's a pretty interesting idea. I'm not sure. I don't know what your thoughts are on potentially those are just some of ours flying overhead, and but it was from a craft that they back engineered.
I think anything's possible, especially when it comes to the amount of money and resources we can throw at our military and kind of our black scientific projects. But the one thing I would dispute, at least in this particular instance, is the size was insane, and to fly it that low to where it was less than a story off the ground in the middle of a major metropolitan city, that if they accidentally fell out of the sky, well, there's no disputing that there's a mini mall-sized triangle crash down in the middle of southern Arizona. That'd be pretty foolish on their part to put such a black op vehicle right in the public like that.
Yeah, again, not knowing the details in regards to where this incident occurred, Genesis, but you did kind of let it slip that it had happened in southern Arizona. So my home state, more or less. I'm actually born in New Mexico, but I've lived here for most of my life, so Arizona is my home state. But I'm not sure if you meant to do that. If you want people to know that you had some time here in Arizona, I'm not trying to let people know who you are, where you're from. We're trying to keep you safe over there with an experience like this. Your safety is paramount over here at Tarantulas Dream TV. So, but I do want to thank you for sharing that story. In fact, over here on the comments, I do have a few real short ones. But Benjamin said, "Holy hell!" and Trial and Error Collective said, "Wow." So your story, it's quite compelling, and it's honestly one of the better UFO experiences I've heard. I've had a few people come to me and share some of their UFO experiences as well. I haven't met anyone who's admitted to any kind of abduction scenarios or lost time or anything like that necessarily. But I have had a few people just tell me they've seen strange lights in the sky. I, in fact, have had a small UFO experience. I've seen some lights in the sky, nothing crazy, but something I couldn't particularly explain. So, but your story tends to be the one that when I think back to to kind of firsthand UFO experiences. It's quite amazing that this happened to someone I know, and I thank you for sharing that. And it does sound like it kind of left quite the impression on you. I mean, after that, essentially after seeing this kind of craft, I mean, what was your, you were definitely, you said that you were kind of blown away by it, but did you feel any sense of danger? Were you scared at all? Were a sense of fright at all? I mean, this is quite the experience. I
would say in the moment, I was definitely in the throes of quiet fear. I wasn't making any sounds like the gentleman who was with me at the time. He was losing it, but just probably mouth agape, staring up. I mean, something like that. There's no running from something like that. And it's just one of those things that I couldn't deny it. You see the weird lights, you can always, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. And being near like an Air Force base or a major airport, you can always write things off. But this was one of the things that was just too much to deny. And yeah, after that, I was just firm believer. I knew some people who were on the military installation. They gave me some interesting information. They had told me that some Army personnel, strange enough, had arrived that night, late that night, and they were seen around the base. Mm-hmm. And, could just be coincidence, but it's kind of odd. I mean, I know there's a lot of cross-pollination when it comes to different branches of military. They can show up at each other's bases for whatever reason, but after an incident like that, there were definitely another branch came up to hang out. So food for thought, I guess.
Wow. Okay. So this does seem like, I mean, with some of that insider information, it sounds like this was kind of a big deal. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, again, I myself have grown up. My father was in the Air Force, but maybe I've just kind of declined to really pick his brain on it, which seems kind of weird because he's my dad, and I guess I could very easily ask him his opinion on some of this stuff. He does believe in UFOs, as far as I can tell, but he's never given me any kind of like insider information on his time on working on military bases and whatnot. But it does sound like you kind of had more of the inside track on some of that stuff, which I find very fascinating. Having kind of that in where it's very interesting to me. So I do want to look at a couple of these comments real quick over here. Benjamin, this story is amazing. I'm all covered in goosebumps. So Benjamin, I'm glad that our friend Genesis over here was able to give you some goosebumps with that UFO story. Yeah, it's crazy out there. Now, if anyone on the comments, we only have about 5 minutes left on the stream, probably a little less than that. So if you have any UFO experiences, if you want to call in, phone number for the show is 520-704-7820, or if you'd just like to leave it in the comments so we can all experience the goosebumps. And Las Muletas, scary. Yes, very scary. But I'm glad you survived, Genesis, and I'm glad you lived to tell the tale. Clearly, whatever happened to you with getting sick and your friend getting sick, and it doesn't sound like it potentially did any long-lasting damage, unless you're just not spilling the beans on potentially what happened to you after the sighting. I mean, you got a little sick, but it sounds like you're doing all right now, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely. Didn't come up with any leukemia or anything like that. People who've been exposed to high levels of radiation, at least knock on wood, not so far. So, but there was definitely something was going on with that low hum and the anti-gravity with the dust floating from the ground. So people did have a reaction, but hopefully it was one of those short-lived sort of things.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. So, like I said, I only have a couple minutes left on the stream. So, before I bid you adieu, Genesis, I'm just, one quick question before we get off the phone. Essentially, where do you see us going from here in regards to potentially soft disclosure or just the UFO question in general? I mean, the year's almost done in a way, which seems kind of weird to already say that the year's flown by as crappy as it's been. we're already going to be in September here soon. Where do you see the rest of the year going? Do you see us potentially having some more kind of groundbreaking, exciting news in regards to UFOs and extraterrestrials, or do you think? I think we're just going to ride out the rest of the year knowing that there's a task force investigating UAPs, and this might be the end of UFO news for a while.
I'm feeling like it might be the end of UFO news, or in fact, quite the opposite. Maybe something big at the end of the year, with all that's going on. Maybe to get our minds off of the forthcoming election, or what will maybe be the post-election. They'll distract us with something else if things get too crazy. You never know how people like to politically maneuver throughout the world.
Sure. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if, November 2nd, Trump gets on stage and just really just lets us have it in regards to the UFO story and what's really going on right before Election Day. So if that happened, it wouldn't really surprise me at all, really. So anyway, so that's the end of the show. Genesis, I'd like to thank you for tuning in, being on the phone, kind of spending some time over here on Tarantulas Dream TV, and I hope you stay safe out there. And if you have any more UFO experiences or anything you'd like to share, you know where to find me. So I want to thank you again, and I hope you stay safe out there.
You too, sir. You take care. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Bye-bye. There you go. That was Genesis, our guest for the night. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in to Tarantulas Dream TV. I will be back next week. I will have, I'll have a new show for you all. I'm hoping that the stream looked fine tonight. It looked like it cleared itself up. So maybe, again, it's just all kind of some conspiracy government madness. Maybe they just don't want me to talk to y'all. So hopefully everything's fine from here on out. Maybe I just need to start the stream a little earlier and let the horses get to racing, And actually, I believe next week we'll be talking about QAnon. QAnon has been coming back in the news over the last couple of weeks. We covered QAnon for our conspiracy theories and algorithms episode. But it looks like it's not coming to an end. QAnon keeps coming, so I do want to kind of catch up with our least favorite conspiracy group, QAnon. So anyway, I hope everyone's staying safe out there. Please wear a mask if you go outside, social distance if you can, and remember, it is a weird, weird world. Take care.